Hello, Vince.
Hi, Ramesh. I see you tried to log on an hour ago.
Yeah, it's time changed. I don't know.
Yeah, time zone stuff, I guess. Yeah.
I assumed.
If you're unsure, go to the website and have a look at the countdown timers. They'll tell you.
Okay, well,
So how have you been?
um, it's difficult.
Same difficult as before or different difficult?
I don't know. Maybe it's the same.
So tell me about it. Tell me about the difficulty. How do you experience it?
Uh, in the body, there's a lot of energy. I feel disoriented all the time. Uh, I feel pain in my head. It's almost like it's so heavy that it's an effort to walk, to talk.
Hmm.
And I feel like I need to work with anger, and I haven't done any anger work for a while now. And I tried to do it just before the meeting, and I feel like it changed a little bit.
So
And
what
during it,
you're going?
there were moments that I felt uh, almost like if I'm outside my body, or a sense of strength or power. But then it contracts again, or and my body was shaking, and it was a bit overwhelming.
So the sense of power that you experienced, that was coming from inside you or outside you? Was it from inside out?
It's almost like it's as if something was holding me or weighing me down, and suddenly I'm not affected by it. I'm outside it.
Right. It's interesting. So you're outside of it. So the power is inside you, but you are outside of you. Is that what you're saying? Don't worry about how
It's like,
sensible it is. Yeah.
yeah, it's a feeling like it's like I'm holding onto something, like the contraction is like holding onto something. If I let go, I will fall. And suddenly I find myself, no, I'm not falling. I'm actually fine. I don't need to hold on.
Yep. Yep.
And then it contracts again.
And it pulls you back
And
in, pulls you back down.
yes, it's like a gravity. It's like I'm being sucked into this contraction again.
Mm. Would could we could we go as far as to say that this contraction is Ramiz? It's yourself that you're being
Yeah,
stuffed back into.
it's the familiar realms. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And I noticed something when I was trying to work with anger, express it. It reminded me of my dad, and and it was interesting. Like I didn't pay attention to this before. Like part of me doesn't want to feel the anger because it reminds me of my dad somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to be him or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is a silly question, maybe. Do you think, is it your anger or is it your dad's anger? What's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask that?
I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the recently I was talking to my friend, and she was speaking about her mom actually, about um, how she manipulates her, and I was shocked. Like when she was describing how she would, if she didn't respond quickly to her messages or something, she would message her to say, "Are you okay?" or
Mm.
"Everything is okay," and she would like feel angry at her because it feels like she manipulates her somehow
Mm. Mm.
to respond. And I discovered like my mom does that all the time. Like it will tell me, "Oh, I'm worried about you," or
Yes, yes.
uh, and I would feel uncomfortable, but I wouldn't know why. And it was clear to me that some part of me is considering myself to be responsible for how
How
she
she
would
feels.
feel.
Yes. And what was your response to your friend? Like, how did you relate? Did you think your mum was also manipulating you with this?
It somehow it made sense because uh, I noticed that actually makes me uncomfortable when
Mm.
she does that,
Yep,
but I
yep.
wasn't aware of it. Like
Yes.
it made me realize, like, wow, yeah, that's why I feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
But also because the story that I has, or this feeling of being responsible that
Yes.
I have felt before. I was aware of it, but um,
Mm.
and also uh, it, I think it wasn't clear because I don't like the idea being angry at my mom. It doesn't
Yes.
sound good.
Well, that's exactly
Uh,
the opposite of what she has trained you to do, isn't it? So you feel
and
responsible for her feeling good. You don't want to feel responsible for her feeling bad if you're angry at her. Yeah.
it's also like I would. I also noticed that I would do the same actually in
Yes.
some cases, and it's almost like this worrying, telling people I'm worried or expecting them to be worried is kind of like the love language that I'm used to.
Yes. Yes.
But it's like, no, that's not love. That's
It,
abuse. That's
it's a pretty
uh,
fucked love language, isn't it?
yeah, like, and
Yeah. But it's
I spent
common.
like,
It's very common, especially inside families.
yeah, I spent few days like being disgusted with with everything, with myself, with other people, and I start like seeing all this behavior, like, uh,
So seeing that behavior, does that does that is does it free you at all, even a little bit from it, having to respond in the way that you do?
I feel like as if I'm at the edge of it,
Hmm.
like I see how it happens automatically inside me. I can see it in myself, this desire to blame or to make someone else responsible for how I feel, or struggle against my how I perceive that someone might be making me responsible for.
Mm. It's interesting that we started talking about your dad and then we find ourselves talking about your mum. What, how does this stuff relate to your dad at all? Did he manipulate you in this way? This kind of strange love language?
No, I was very bad at it.
Yeah.
I had a dream about him recently. I was in the dream. I was stuck in some situation, and I called him because I needed help. And then it was like a silly situation, and he couldn't help me. And I was very angry in the dream. I started screaming, shouting, swearing, and not at him, but at the situation. And something felt familiar about this situation. Uh,
That's a key point. Yeah. Would you do that in normal life or only in your dreams would you ask him for help?
I would in real life, but like if I really need the help. Um,
Mm.
I would do it too, even though like every part of me is saying no.
What would override all the no in you? What would be the motivation that would have you do it anyway?
I talk myself into it, like he's my father. Is he supposed to help me or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something?
So part of you says he should. It would be his job as your father to do that. But another part of you says it won't end up well.
Not necessarily. It feels uncomfortable to be around him.
Mm. Can you isolate that feeling of discomfort? What does it feel like? Where do you feel that? What is it saying to you, that feeling of discomfort when you're around him? Why is it uncomfortable?
Because I would feel like I'm being judged. Mm, even he sometimes like overtly judging me, or if he's doesn't say anything, it he's not like he's not available at all. Like
Mm.
he's there, but he's not there.
Yeah. Would it be true to say that I don't know how to put this, you're a product of both of them?
Yeah,
And if you were to somehow break free of them, then you could be yourself.
I don't know what that means.
No, no.
I don't know what it means to be myself.
Yes, you probably would disappear altogether, eh? Poof, and no more remedies. So let's try that from a slightly different angle. Would it be true to say that your existence is not physically, but your sense of self is entirely a reflection of their relationship with you?
Not only them, yeah, I can see it's tied to relationships.
To other relationships as well, you mean?
Yeah, relating in general. It's like this character Rams is a relating tool.
Mm, mm. So would it be accurate to say that you're relating to others besides them still has very much a flavour of them in it somewhere?
um, Yeah, I'm starting to notice how the dynamic is being replicated in other relationships. And I feel like the edge of it is the fear of disconnection. Like, especially when I allow myself to feel the anger, it's like I'm being disconnected,
Hmm.
or like I'm gonna be kicked out, or uh,
Yep.
if I raise my voice.
So when you earlier on we talked about you floating away, does that feel like there is less connection or even no connection to
Yeah,
them?
it's not no connection or disconnection. In that moment, there was no them. I don't know really. I feel like
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's all right. It's good to even contemplate this. Yeah. So it feels to me like that you've never learned how to be your own person. Your existence is entirely a response to those relationships. Is that too strong?
um, I don't know. Like I feel like I don't know where to look.
Mm. So what if you didn't have to look at anything, anywhere, but just looking was where you need to start? Looking without coming to any conclusions, looking without looking for anything or at anything, just looking, the process of looking, not having any opinion about what is seen, just seeing.
Whenever I find or I bring myself to this place, I feel a lot of grief.
Hmm. So grief is about losing something, isn't it? Something missing. So no matter how horrible, unpleasant, whatever you want to call it, something was, if it's familiar and we lose it, It's the loss of familiarity that brings on the grief, not the loss of what it was about, but just the fact that it was familiar. Did anything occur to you that you might be losing, that might become missing?
Yeah.
Can you say what?
As you said, the sense of familiarity.
Okay. Yeah. Would it be accurate to say that it is that sense of familiarity that anchors you to the ground of your being, the ground of existence, whatever, the ground? Is it familiarity that anchors you, that keeps you from floating away?
Yeah, something like that. My body is shaking. I find it hard to hold the phone.
Mm, mm. I'm inclined to say rest now. Don't do anything right now. Just relax and let whatever happens happens. Let your body express what it wants to express. We've poked the bear, we've stirred things up. Let's let it settle and see what comes out of it, eh?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mm. And let your imagination run wild. Let it go. Let like a waking dream. Let it all happen, regardless of how nonsensical it might appear. Just let it go and see what happens. Mm. I'm really pleased to see you, Jade. I got they got tied up on that letter, that email, and then I started a video, and talking to a camera with nobody there was really weird. It was really hard to do. I kept wanting to just go into a meditation state and be quiet. I couldn't couldn't do it that way. I needed to be talking to somebody, something to respond to, I think. Yeah.
Thank
But
you. You've been trying.
yeah. Yeah. But it's been informative. It's been really good. And I've this same thing came up recently, and Marius and I were discussing it, and it's a really subtle thing, this sense of me, and it's not a sensation, and it's not a thought. It's even a feeling is not really a good description for it. It's the flavor of a feeling more than anything. So it is about, and it's not about the thought or sensation or anything, but rather the the color of the connection to it, the relationship to it. There's this really subtle thing that says it's even too much to say that it says this is me, right? It just hints at this being me. It's like, to say it's the identification with those things is a kind of a okay description, but it doesn't touch what we're trying to get at here. That flavour of what is me, the flavour of that there is a me. Actually, we're really, when you use the fetters to look at things, there is that, the first fetter is that recognition that there is no self. And then we go through the fetters,
What's
to
fettered?
fetters. You don't know about the fetters at all? Okay,
No.
it kind of arose out of Buddhism, and it's a way, and it's a structure to look at various layers, levels. None of those really work, but let's say layers of identification that we have. So I'll just run you through quickly. The first fetter is what they call stream entry, which is recognizing that self is an illusion. Right. So there's a thing, and then and based on that, you will also recognize that the requirement for having control rests on the existence of a self running the show, and that responsibility and choice and decisions, all of those things rest on that there is somebody there running the show. So when we recognize that as an illusion, it ceases to be a delusion and becomes an illusion. That's the first fetter falls. And with that, the second fetter is doubt. Doubt that means that I've seen through it. That the doubt that I've attained stream entry from a Buddhist perspective, that first shift has occurred. And the third fetter is about rites and rituals, where we identify with things that we do for a purpose, things to achieve an end, right? Like going to church so you don't go to hell would be a real classic rites and rituals kind of thing. but it gets a lot more subtle than that, just getting upset if somebody sits in your chair. That's the same thing again. And so that's the third fetter. And then the fourth and fifth fetter, the fourth fetter is about desire. I want. Stuff that I want. And the fifth fetter is about stuff I don't want. Stuff, so it's about ill will or aversion. And so there's a bit of a tie up there between that aversion and ill will, but nevertheless, it's pushing away stuff I don't want. And they're the bottom five fetters that are, how can I put it, the grossest identification takes place, and the fetter offers ways of looking at each of those as a way of breaking them. Right? I don't particularly embrace the fetters as a thing, but they're a good way to describe things, in that sense. Then it gets a lot more ephemeral. So when we get into the seventh fetter, it's our obsession with form. What creates form? What is form? How does form fit in? Right? The form. And the eighth fetter is formless. Our obsession with what happens when we realize that form is a mental construct. Then where do we go with formlessness? 4 and 5, no, that's 6. And then 7 is formless, and then 8 is where I'm heading with this description for you, and that is the remnants or the remainder of a really, really subtle sense of I am, I exist. And I know there's no self there, but there's this body, there's this almost indescribably ephemeral sense of I am. That's that one to go through. And then the last two, the ninth fetter is restlessness. What happens when I realize that doesn't exist? And there is that restlessness that comes from having nowhere to go and nothing to do, and there is no body and there is no thing, and what happens? That restlessness. And the 10th fetter, the last one in that list, is ignorance, or not knowing. I know nothing. There is nothing can be known, nothing to know, nobody to know it, just nothing, nothingness. And those last fetters are ones that we frequently don't come across when we're working with people. We're mostly working through the bottom 5 fetters. And the 4th and 5th fetter are the big ones. They're the ones of desire and aversion. They're the ones where we get triggered. We get triggered and we get angry, or we get triggered and we want something. What happens if we want? How does our want create satisfaction? Those kind of things are very much there. So it's the 4th and 5th fetter that are mostly responsible for suffering. But that subtle sense of I am, every one of those fetters is tied up with the first fetter. So often the people who work through the fetters will go, you've got to break 1 before you go to 2, and you've got to break 2 before you go to 3. Well, it's not the way it is that I see it at all. Essentially, every single fetter you work through is all associated with all the other fetters, and in particular with the first fetter. So we can see through the sense of self, see through that a sense of self is actually only a mental conclusion that we come to as a result of feelings and thoughts, and yet there can be remnants where we still behave as if those things exist. And so we can see that, okay, there's no sense of self there. There's no actual self running the show. There's no sense of self there. And I feel free. And then all of a sudden, some circumstances, could be what somebody says, something that happens, something I see, the news, whatever, and all of a sudden I'm feeling uncomfortable. And that's an indication that I've triggered a remnant of a belief in a self. And they can be there even though we don't know they're there. And we don't know because they haven't been triggered. They're hiding. But when circumstances are right, what we experience is some, how I would put it is that self, the belief in itself is body armor. It's a way to protect us from unpleasant feelings. And those unpleasant feelings are frequently there because they've been buried, and they're not in our consciousness. You could call it an unconscious or subconscious belief that's there, but all it takes are the right circumstances and boom, it'll get triggered. And then what we find is that we're angry or we're sad or we're whatever, whatever the emotional response we have. If we've got an unpleasant emotional response, you can be sure that what that's doing is hiding from you something worse. So even though we've got emotional discomfort, it's nothing compared to what we think is there. So I like to call it the monster under the bed that we're frightened of. And we've got so much fear. Well, firstly, we've got anger, and if we can get through the anger and we face the anger rather than blame other people or circumstances for it and look outside of ourselves, if we recognise that something in us got triggered, we can see through the anger, then what we're going to find past that is some most likely fear. And fear is like the last line of defence to keep us away from that monster under the bed, what we don't want to face. And if we can push through the fear, that's not right, but anyway, if we get past the fear, then very likely we're going to find shame. And shame is a way of covering up guilt. Shame is a lot easier to cope with than guilt. And then if we get to the guilt, that's pretty raw, painful stuff. That's where we blame ourselves for whatever. And it's like when we're kids, any shit that goes on around us, our parents fighting, for example, we blame ourselves for that, even though it's not true. It's got nothing to do with us. Or that might be about us, but it's still not our problem. It's their problem. But as a kid, we take on responsibility for that stuff. And that just gets buried in the body and it gets isolated and it never gets looked at, so it never gets an upgrade. As we get older, we get more sophisticated ways of avoiding it, but we never upgrade it to our current understanding of things. So we might have a crazy situation where, our parents were screaming at each other and we think it's our fault and we feel guilty about that. And it's really obvious to us as an adult that it's got nothing to do with us. It was just them expressing their own shit. But as a kid, we carry it and it stays in us, in that childlike thing, simply because we've got really good at avoiding it. And so what happens is it gets triggered, and we frequently still don't get near it to look at it, because we're really good at avoiding it. You know, it's them, those bastards out there. It's their fault. It's the government's fault. It's the neighbour's fault. It's whoever. And we just never get close enough to it. So those little remnants of things, they'll be there for a long time. They get further and further apart, less and less of them as we see through them. But do we ever get completely free of them? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? They still show up for me 15 years later. And they can be years apart sometimes. Don't show up for 2 years, and then all of a sudden something happens and boom, up they come. Or they come up and we go, oh, okay, there's a bit of anger. I'm not concerned about it. I didn't suffer because I didn't, it came up, it exploded, it was gone again, all within a minute. And there's no suffering, so why would I bother to look at it? Then one day I go, oh, you know what? Maybe there's something behind that worth looking at. And then I discover, I've been carrying this belief that I think the world should be the way I think it should be. Crazy belief. And that's been my most recent one. that was pretty good. Yeah. But we got a long way away from well, we didn't really, but in a way we did, from that subtle sense of self. So what we've got is it's wrong to say it's an idea of, but it's closer than a lot of other things to say. There's this idea that this feeling that's much more subtle than a feeling. It's just a flavour of a feeling that says it's me that is there. And there's nothing to do about it. We don't want to chase it away or suppress it. We just need to recognise that it's fiction, that the experience of it is actual, but it's just something that we've been taught. It doesn't have any legitimacy. And you can see that how it gets really stimulated. And you said, I can't actually see it now. It just said, trying excites it, but trying not to try also excites it.
It's just the other side of the coin, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's the same coin, that's right.
Yeah.
It is that. So the appropriate thing to do is just be interested, curious about how it shows up. It is really interesting that this shows up. But see, then there's this thing. You're trying. Well, how do you do that? What is trying? When you look at it in detail, you get that trying starts off with an idea that something is possible. And then it comes up with a decision to do it. And then it comes up with a contraction that we might call effort, that we apply to it. And part of that is where we tell ourselves we must keep this in the front of our mind. We must remind ourselves to keep going at it. And see how it's a really complicated, lots and lots of little things in it none of which we've got control over. I mean, to tell yourself, I've got to keep remembering to do that, rests on the idea that you can control your thoughts. Well, how do you know which thoughts are going to come up or not come up? Do you know? Do you know what your next thought's going to be? It's pretty
No.
obvious, isn't it? Yeah. So when you say, oh, I must remember to do that, you don't realise how crazy you sound. You're a crazy woman saying that I know I haven't got control, but here I'm going to behave as if I've got control,
Mhm.
or I'm going to keep trying to do it. So I've got to keep remembering to try, which means I've got to keep that focus and I've got to keep that forward movement towards some goal. But where we're leading is like, well, here's the classic one. So people driving, have you ever had the experience when you're driving that you've arrived somewhere and then you've realised that for the last 10 minutes you've had no conscious awareness of what you've been doing as you've been driving?
Less so than most because I'm quite a um I was quite anxious first driving, so very, very attentive. Um,
Yes.
but in lots of other situations, yes.
Mm. Well, even within those attentive situations, right? So your attention is on the road and other traffic and so on, but
Mhm.
I bet you're not aware of how much pressure you're putting on your foot a lot of the time,
Mm.
whether you're moving from the accelerator to the brake or when you put the indicators on. I bet you put the indicators on automatically a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You don't even think about it. That just happens, eh? Yeah. And yet you feel like you're in control.
I mean,
Hi. So if some of the time driving is looking after itself, or some of the driving is looking after itself, isn't it possible that all of it could look after itself? I mean, you pay attention with driving. What about when you're walking? Do you say, now I'm going to put my left foot in front and now my right foot, and now I'm going to place it down heel first. Now I'm going to put the other one down heel first, not toe first. Now I'm going to put it a bit further to the right or to the left. What about when you get an itch and you just scratch the itch? You don't think about it, do you? It just happens all automatically. Everything you do sometimes happens automatically. Yet we fool ourselves into thinking that we're in control. And it's based on a stupid story that if you're not in control, you must be out of control. And that's not so. Because control itself is a ridiculous story. It's an illusion. What is control? People say they're in control, and then they turn around and tell me that they're in control some of the time and not in control the other time. But they're not in control of the times when they're in control, and they're not in control of the times when they're not in control. So the whole idea, the whole notion of control falls apart pretty quickly. Logically speaking, if you have control, you've always got control. If you've only got control sometime, that's not control, is it? Especially if you don't control the times you've got control and the times you haven't. Doesn't make any sense. As soon as you start looking at it, the whole thing becomes a ridiculous story. So what I'm actually talking about is recognizing the moments when things just happen, and if it helps, you can say, it's my brain that's got control, not my mind, my brain. My brain evaluates the circumstances around me all the time and decides that it's safe to walk there, or I better go around that coffee table. Right? The brain does it. And after the brain's made its decisions about where to go and what to do, it might or might not involve the mind and say, here you go, we're going to go around that coffee table. But essentially the brain will do it. And the brain sometimes makes mistakes, and you kick your shin. But most of the time the brain will do it quite perfectly well because it's been trained to. We've learned how to do it. So when you learned how to drive, you were teaching your muscles, you were teaching your body, you were teaching your feet to move and your hands to move. And in the beginning, when you first learned, you were very conscious of how soon do I start to turn the wheel to go around that corner. After you've been driving for a year, you don't even think about it. It just automatically happens because your body has learned how to do it. And it's just totally amazes me, well, it kind of doesn't in one way, but it does in another, that we never recognise that. We always go along to say, well, I'm a responsible person because I'm always alert when I'm in the car.
I guess it's so ingrained in our language, the way we talk, and
Yes,
so many things we do, practices and traditions, just culture generally, that it's just like being constantly bombarded with the
yep,
belief you are fully in control, fully responsible.
absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
It's like, yeah, it's just like if it's not already deeply embedded, it just gets re-embedded constantly.
Yeah, yeah, constantly reinforced, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I imagine that that's why they call it liberation, because that compulsion to obey those things falls away. We get out of the jail of compulsion.
It makes me think I need to find ways to remind myself. But then it takes me back to the conversation that you've just had with me. And that's why
Well,
I'm
yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying, I need to remember that, or you could try and be more accurate. See, this is the trick with language. We don't have the right way of talking. We always have subject object stuff in our
yeah.
language, right? But what we're trying to do here is we're turning subject and object concepts, and the verb in between them is our reality. And so it's experiencing that is actual.
Mhm.
So you can say, I need to remind myself, or you can say, and you will say that, that's because that's a traditional way to say it, but you'll recognize that I is a concept, need is a joke, remind is something that happens, myself is another concept. And so when you say that, so it's a bit more accurate to say, ah, reminding happens, remembering happens. So even reminding is a trick, isn't it? Because there's another object kind of thing. But remembering, that's a process. So remembering happens, or not, and that's fine. And so that's why I put a bit of emphasis on. I mean, I dislike the word for a little bit, just a little bit, for the conceptual nature of it. But mindfulness is something that we kind of move towards, where we want to retrain our mind to become aware of things until we don't need to anymore. And so all of this stuff that we're going on about, once that's established, you can forget about it. It's not required anymore. And you'll still say, I am going to go to the shop, and you don't even think about the fact that, well, it's a rather ridiculous statement in terms of reality, but shopping will happen. Getting what is required for that recipe will happen, or not. Yeah. So it is just the way you look at it. And so at this stage, the more you get out of the traditional way of saying it, even just in your mind, and say it as a process or an activity, and an objective one at that, like it will happen, rather than I'm doing, then it helps us to realign our way of thinking, because it comes from a different part of the brain. I'm going to do that comes from a particular part of the brain, very, very left brain stuff. That happens. That comes from probably a right brain thing. It's just a recognition. And the thing I'm very aware of more so lately, but I really want to say to you, nothing can be wrong. There is no wrong or right, but doing nothing, everything is, there's no good or bad, but everything is good. So no matter what happens, it happens. And if you recognize that it's happened and it was counter to where we're headed, that recognition is a really great thing. Enjoy it. If there's no recognition, you don't know you're lost, so there's nothing to do. But if you get lost and you recognize you're lost in thought, in concept, that recognition is worth celebrating. And that will provoke it to happen sooner each time. And then the point will come where it's a moot point. You don't even need to think about it. Once you reach that stage where you just relax in whatever turns up, it's it's just lovely. And I know you have flavors of it. You experience moments of that. So really, just really enjoy them. The more you enjoy them, the more attractive they become, the more you'll experience them. So if I say to you, why don't you, why are you not awake now? Why are you yet not awake? It's a stupid thing to say. As soon as I say it, I can go, that's crazy, but go on, tell me why. See what happened to your body then? Did you get that?
A pulling.
Contraction happened. Shoulders got tight. Head turned away. Yeah.
Discomfort.
What's your response if I say, you're already awake, you've just got to get comfortable with it? See, all these things you wrote in that email to me, they're just doubts. They're just thoughts about why I'm not yet awake.
And I want for it to be some kind of way, maybe.
You'll do it your way, as everybody does. But again, what I just said was stupid, isn't it? You'll do it your way. Right? There's not a single word in that sentence that stands up to scrutiny. It'll happen uniquely. That might be a
Yeah.
better way to put it. Yeah. So whatever turns up, especially if you form an opinion that means that you're not awake, it also means that you've just seen something that's worth looking at. Not in order to fix it, just something to look at. So what we're doing really amongst everything else is we're recognizing habits, that habit of the old way.
And in that, like, so a lot, something that I noticed happening, I think it is a pattern, a strong pattern. It's what you were saying before, maybe. I don't know whether it relates, but like it's often guilt, it seems like fear, but then it seems to be quite strongly a guilt kind of feeling.
Great, love it, good stuff.
And then
Yeah,
I think there is this pattern of just wanting to escape that eventually.
yeah. Yeah.
Depending on
Well,
what time of day, but especially in
yeah,
the morning, it's like this is too much.
yeah.
So is it just a case of trying to look into that as it is, and in kind of like the felt sensation? Um, I don't know whether I just escalate it more, or whether it just escalates more by the
Right.
intention.
So that the offering there is several things. One of them is to see what your usual reaction is, to notice whether you do escalate it, or whether you do run away from it, or whether you do escape into fantasy or activity, or what it is that you use to avoid it. Right? Have you experienced stories of what it might be about?
Um,
I'm not asking you to say what it is, just have there been any ideas of what it could be about?
as in, like, is there something that I think I feel guilty about in my?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think so. It
No.
almost just feels like something I've just carried for an
Yes.
awful long time.
Yeah.
Almost like I, I get the sense that it's almost like a culturally ingrained
Mm.
thing, like you need to, if you don't feel guilty, you won't be productive and add to
Yep.
society
Yep.
and
Yep. Yeah.
what
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't feel guilty, that means you're arrogant and superior and all of those
yeah,
things, and you'll end up in hell for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So when we start looking at it like that, you can easily see, I imagine, you can easily see how they're stories that you've adopted about how you should be, and you've adopted them from your external circumstances, most likely from your family, but not necessarily, most likely from one or the other of your parents, but not necessarily. Could be could be a single incident that got that going, or it could be a constant bombardment of ideas that you got at Sunday school. Who knows where it came from? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what it is, right? The fact that you recognize it as a feeling of guilt, never jump into, oh, that's wrong, I've got to get rid of it.
Mm.
Right? It is what it is, and it's interesting, is the appropriate approach to it. And we don't actually need to see any origination of it. We don't actually need to see an incident, whether it be a single incident or repeated stuff that caused that. But you can see very easily that this is not defined because it's too painful to get close to, or it's too far back for you to reach, right? But it exists as it exists, and it controls your responses. So if you start out every day like that, it
Mm.
shapes the way you're going to be during the day. I have to be a good girl, right? And if you feel guilt, oh, geez, at my heart, I'm not a good girl. So I have to overcome that. And my guilt helps me to overcome that because it helps me apply effort to being a good girl. So it's appropriate for you to be really curious about that. And if you ever feel inclined to, if you just sat down and said to yourself, just thinking to yourself, I'm a bad girl. I'm a bad girl. I'm a really bad girl. I'm a bad girl. I'm a bad girl. That'll get things moving in your body. It'll really provoke that feeling. And as soon as you start to feel it, then you stop doing that and just look for that feeling. Where is that feeling? What part of my body do I feel that in? Is it my chest, my belly, or wherever? So just look for the sensation, and that is your portal to the origin of this stuff. That is your portal to what it actually is. And you don't have to see any specific details. You just to know that it is something that is there from before is enough. And when you fully grok that, then you'll realize that it's inappropriate today. It might have been appropriate back then, but today it's not. But the fact that you can experience it as guilt is really good. It's amazingly good, because most people have to work pretty hard to get to the guilt level, because there'll be all sorts of things above that that'll keep them away from that.
Mm.
And usually it's shame on top of guilt, and on top of that is fear, and on top of that is anger, and so on. All things to keep away from, to keep you away from it. So the fact that you're already there is a really big thing. It just straight away that lets you get close to it quickly. And just by recognizing that it's not possible to be guilty of anything, no matter what. Even if you run around murdering people, that's not to feel guilty about. That's suggesting that you've got some other problems, but it's not about morality.
Mm. Mm. It doesn't serve much purpose, really, does it?
No,
Not
except
helpful. A
to
helpful purpose.
control people. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or create suffering.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, God, a crazy situation, could be like a baby touching its own genitals, and the grandmother slaps it hard and says, "Don't do that. I've got to teach this baby not to do that because it's inappropriate that it does that." And straight away we've got a child growing up feeling incredibly guilty all the time about that, and having all sorts of problems in their relationship because of it as well. And it might have been one incident where grandma slapped and shouted at her in a serious voice. It could be something as simple as that. Or it might be a constant bombardment from church all the time about, you're born in sin, you're born in sin, you're born in sin, you're born in sin. Right? That's something to feel guilty about. You're a sinful person. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it now? But as a kid, you can imagine just how much effect that has on a young child. It's phenomenal. And because it's so unpleasant, we just bury it, and we get really, really good at burying it and keeping away from it. So it's curious. Curiosity is the answer to everything, because curiosity doesn't come with morality. It doesn't come with judgment or opinion. It just comes with, what is that? What? Let's have a, isn't that interesting? Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. I should go back and finish answering your email now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna have to go to work now.
All right. Thank you.
But thank you so much.
I was pleased to see you, really pleased to see you. Yeah.
Thank you again for even hosting these. It's wonderful. Take care.
Bye-bye. That was timely camera turning on, Bianca. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to go now?
No?
Do you
No?
want to go now?
No, I don't need to go now.
Okay.
You, you don't have to yell.
Um, I haven't turned up voice in Zoom settings, so I have to make up with my
Yeah,
voice.
yeah, that's all right. I've got these on too, and I'm getting a bone conduction from the computer. So yeah, I'm hearing you okay. Yeah.
Mm. I had a meeting with a friend who she was listening um, to some audio from Liberation Unleashed, 10 episodes. So I think it was enlightened quotes
Oh
or
yes, yeah,
something. Yeah, and she really liked it. That it's very clear, and it made things clearer for
yes.
her.
Okay, there is an app available with enlightened quotes as well as she can download a PDF of that as well, and there is a book too, which sometimes turns up for free on Amazon, but otherwise it's not very expensive either. I think. Yeah, but yeah, they're quite good, those ones.
Uh, and it's also scary for her. She has fear because she's starting to understand, that there is no control, uh, and that there is no meaning, and it surprises me, but I can help with it.
Doesn't surprise me. Great, yeah, it's good.
I I don't even understand very much this fear. Maybe I've forgotten how it
Well,
felt.
yeah, maybe you never had the fear. That so some people are brought up where they they learn a very rigid way of being,
Mm,
and then they imagine that they do that in order to be okay. And so the big trick with the control thing is to make sure she recognizes not that she's got control and she's going to lose control, but rather that she never ever had actual control. She only ever had the illusion of control. So people that
mm.
do put control as an important issue feel that they've had control, and the idea of losing control can be very frightening. But if you tell her that you never actually had control, so there's no control to lose, it's just the recognition that you never had control. And that's not something that can be told. So somehow or other, you need to help her to discover that for herself. And I just
Well,
use,
I I think it's also about losing hope,
oh well, that
but
yeah,
because when I think I have control, then I can have more control. And if I'm really good at having control, then everything will be fine and dandy.
mm, yeah. Yeah, well, that same
And
thing with meaning. So that's where,
oh, that was interesting because we talked more, and I found something in my experience. Um, when I had major crisis, and uh, I was afraid that I won't be able to earn a living, just get any money to feed myself.
Mm.
And I felt like I have no right to live if I can't earn for myself. Mm. And I think the fear is with this deep-seated belief that if my life has no purpose, then I have no right to live.
Mm.
Which comes with the rigid upbringing.
Yeah. So when it's an easier version than looking for a self to say, if life has purpose, where is it? Show me. Give me a slice of it. Put it in a bottle. Where do we find this thing called purpose? Surely it is just made up. And in fact, every culture has a different version of purpose. For some, that purpose in life is to earn money, and for others, it's to reproduce, and so
Yeah,
on and so on.
yeah.
Yeah.
It can be, if I have no children, then I have no right to live.
Yes, that's so. If your purpose is, if you've adopted the purpose of that, of reproduction,
Yeah.
and that is a pretty big one, especially in, I mean, the Catholics, for example, make it a very, very important one that you must produce more Catholics. Yeah. It's not so much these days, but when I was young, it was a really big deal. They would always say, "Have more kids."
I guess it's not limited to Catholics. It's
No, it's not
um,
limited. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah,
it is present in most cultures. When it was everything about marriage, uh, prolonging the family
yeah.
name. And
Well, even more so, there was a time in Australia not that long ago. It was maybe four governments, so maybe 15 years ago, 16 years ago, the government actually told people that we will give you money if you have more kids.
yeah, well, and it's just evolutionary. There were famines, uh, disease.
Hmm.
So, but it was mostly about this feeling. I don't have the right to live if I don't do this or that, or more generally, if I don't have a purpose.
Yes, and that it's interesting to recognise that that purpose is culturally generated.
Mm.
Each culture, and then you look at the word culture, and it starts with cult.
But it also can be uh, reaching awakening.
That can be a cult for sure. Yes.
The
Yeah.
purpose, the purpose of
Yes.
every man's life is to reach enlightenment.
So the Dalai Lama used to say the purpose of life was to be happy. And that sounds great But what about all the people who are not happy? Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it to be kind?
Oh, okay. It might have been. Yeah.
That sounds so nice. The purpose of life is to be kind.
Yeah.
You could fall for that.
But but just having a conversation like this, if you have this kind of conversation with your friend, and she starts to recognise that purpose and meaning are just derived, they're just stories that our culture encourages, and it changes over the years from one generation to the next. It changes. You know, if you ask the kids today what the meaning of life is, you'll get a different answer to the kids of 20 or 30 years ago. Quite a different answer. And so we used to see a lot of people who retired, men who retired from work would die really quickly after they retired because their purpose in life was to work. Maybe they meant to be a breadwinner, to look after the family, whatever. But when they retired and they weren't working anymore, they lost purpose and they would just die. That used to happen very, very quickly. Now their purpose is to play golf or go fishing or something.
Well,
Yeah.
in this case, I think that my help is mainly, it's not to explain, not to get intellectual, but it's more about emotional support. And just being there and saying, yeah, it's true. Life has no meaning, no purpose. And I understand that it's scary as fuck and that you are fighting, but it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah, that
fine.
reassurance and allowing
And
that to be.
that she can see that I am fine with it.
Yes, and that gives her encouragement. Yes, just allowing it to come to the surface and talking about it is a huge thing. You know, because a lot of these things can only exist because we don't talk about them. We keep them buried. We keep them down. So it's a great thing, yeah. And the best way for people to discover these things is for them to think about it, to contemplate. So by asking questions that they will, or they can only respond to by having an experience is the very best way. But that simple support is huge. That's a really, really big thing, especially if they're so new to this that it's frightening for them to look at. But there's a part of her that's interested, isn't there? That's exciting.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it's, yes, it is wonderful to see this realization that, oh, I have a right to live just because.
Mm. Yeah.
And we were also talking about love, how I don't see this love in all this realizations, but in this, maybe it is in this, I have a right to live just because. But it is love.
It is.
It is so simple. It's not some big emotion.
It can be big when it starts to
it's like
flow. Yeah.
it's not adding, it's just removing this
Yes, very much.
burden, and here it is.
Mm. Yes, it's been there all along, just
Yeah.
weighed down by all these unnecessary things. Yeah.
Morning.
Hi, Lou.
Hey, Bianca. I was just listening to that. It's really funny. I was using your bot the other day, Vince, to ask about bliss. You know, I don't really feel that sense of bliss that everyone talks about. And it was really great because it just took me down. At the end of the thing, it was about my expectations of what bliss is. And I like what you said, Bianca. It's not this big emotion. And I've been doing some shadow work, really heavy shadow work, bit by bit, just very gently. So after I asked that question and I looked at my expectations, then I did this work. And there was just this realization that life as it is now is bliss. It is bliss. But something put in the something was shown that it was like a comparison almost. Like it wasn't a comparison, but it was like, yeah, and it's just in the simplest of the, even the dog bark. She's looking at me. She wants me to play. Everything's just really, really sharp, really sharp. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd add in there because it was quite pertinent to what I looked at yesterday. I love your bot, Vince. I really do. It's with me.
Good.
It's with me all day. Any triggers, anything, just curious to see what's under that. And it got to the point. So sometimes I don't. I'll think I'll go and ask the bot, and I don't need to because it just goes straight inside.
You know,
Straight
yeah.
inside. I know what it's going to say. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing is just like it's just been a lot of release. Like, but it's not. Some of it's conscious, some of it isn't, and it's got before it was just happening when I was sat quietly, and now it can be happening when I'm in the supermarket queue or in the car, and there'll be a contraction, and there's no necessity to go on, oh, what happened, where's this from? It's just like, oh, hello.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, quite amazing. So yeah, I love your book. I've been sending it to people have been loving it. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. So did you get a minute ago when you looked at the dog and said she wants to play with me? I saw an instant of bliss. Did you experience that?
Yes, I did, because that's not how it was before. It would be
Mm.
annoyance that I'm here, I want to focus on this. She wants my attention. And this story about, oh, she always does this when I'm on. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's the simple things.
They are, yeah, and they're very
Yeah,
quick. Sometimes they're so quick that they're gone and we don't even notice them. That was
yeah,
my point of mentioning it, that we have a lot of mini moments of those in the day. If we are awake to them, they accumulate. They add up to more
yeah,
and more.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just noticing when other people do stuff instead of that judgment, it's like, oh, that's a pattern. It's just that I don't know. It's just like little knots unraveling.
Mm,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Oh, you look good.
yeah, yeah. It's every day something's moving.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you.
I let my body shakes for a while, and I feel like my throat is about to break.
Your
It's very
throat.
intense. Yeah. One moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels very intense. And it's like oh, all alarms are going off. I feel like I need really help, but I don't know what this help should look like.
So do you get the feeling that something will break if it keeps going?
Yeah, it's pulsating very hard. Uh, I It's like I'm being suffocated.
So there's a lot of contraction in the body.
Yeah, it's mostly in the throat.
Yep. So if you were to take a deep breath, would you take it in through the mouth or the nose?
The nose.
So do that. Take a deep breath and see how it feels in your chest and your shoulders. Do they expand as you take a deep breath?
Yeah.
Now when you let it out, can you feel your chest? Can you feel your ribs? Take another one and pull in as much air as you can. Make it as big as possible. Expand your lungs, your ribs, your shoulders, back and your chest out. And then even push your stomach out. And then let it out. And feel how your body feels as it's lets go. What part of your body do you feel it when it's let go? You feel it in your stomach, your ribs, your shoulders, where? What's stopping it from coming out? Is it your throat?
Yeah, it's like it's blocked.
if you imagine yourself as a cartoon character with a giant speech balloon coming out of your mouth, what would be written in that speech balloon? It would be very big and bold and loud. What would it be?
Leave me alone.
Yeah. Say it again. Say it again and again. Repeat it 3 or 4 times. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. How would you say it? How was it in that speech balloon? Was it asking or was it telling?
Telling.
So it was loud?
Yeah.
Yeah. So leave me alone. I just want what?
I don't know.
Hmm. So stay with leave me alone. Just say that in your mind over and over again. Leave me alone, leave me alone. And see if you can see where it's aimed at, where it comes from, maybe who it's aimed at, maybe not who, but what it's aimed at. Who knows? Just keep saying it in your mind over and over and see what comes out of it. Maybe you're talking to Ramiz. Maybe you're talking to the world. Maybe you're talking to a person. Who knows? Just keep saying it and see what happens. Just in your mind. So is it all just neatly pushed down again?
Um, I feel like my head is too big.
So is that another way of saying you think too much?
I don't
Okay, no, don't go with
know.
that. What do you mean by head too big?
Like physically, my head feels like too big, like a balloon.
Mm.
And it's pulsating. And my face, like the pressure, it's almost as my face gonna be cracked open.
Mm-hmm. So there's stuff in there that wants to burst out, eh? Pressure inside pushing outwards.
Yeah.
Oh, you've even said it, blood. And I mean,
Blood.
you've said in your throat that it's blood in your head, high pressure.
Mm. And the pulsing is that in tune with your heartbeat? The,
I can't feel my heartbeat.
mm. Do you think it's what's in your head that you were saying to leave you alone? Is it that what you're saying to leave you alone? What's in your head?
Sometimes.
How do you feel now compared to before?
It's less intense,
Mm.
but I still feel
Yeah. So
heaviness.
what happened eased it a little bit, but it didn't get it out. It's still there. Yeah.
It's like it's moved, being stuck here to be in my head somehow.
Mm. Do you feel like your thoughts persecute you?
I don't know what you mean.
Do your thoughts constantly act aggressively towards you? Are they constantly critical?
Not Not all the time, but sometimes.
But not at the moment.
Sometimes it's just unconscious. Like I would feel like I realize that I'm judging myself without knowing it, or I'm placing a condition on myself.
Mm. So when your body's full of energy, you're vibrating and you feel contracted, does it always end up in your head? Is it an upward movement that happens?
Mostly, and sometimes to my arms. I do like shake my arms, dance, or move.
Yep. And that helps release. But you can't really do that
Uh,
with your head, can you?
I can't really say if it's helping or making things worse.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What would you say the relationship is between your thoughts and these feelings that you have?
What do you mean, relationship?
Do you think your thoughts have anything to do with how you feel?
Yeah,
Would you say that's a direct connection between your thoughts and your feelings?
yeah, when I notice,
Mm. So when you don't notice it, can you reason that that is what's happened?
I assume, and sometimes I do some inquiry about like what do I believe about this, or
Hmm.
mm,
So I'm not suggesting that first there are thoughts, then there are feelings. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that. But they will go around in circles to a degree. You know, your thoughts will promote your feelings, and your feelings will promote your thoughts, and so on and so on. Yeah. Mm. But as you don't control your thoughts, what can you do about it? I imagine that you do feel pretty helpless about the whole situation. So if you do neck exercises, roll your head, stretch your neck from side to side and back and forward, stretching your neck. Does that ease it for you?
Not exactly. I feel like there's a lot of stress and contraction in the muscles and
Which muscles? Touch those muscles.
like the shoulders, the neck, the back.
Mm. So not so much in the head, but in those muscles you just mentioned.
And in the face as well.
Mm.
So maybe I'm still thinking I could do something.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it?
Sometimes I feel like I have no idea what's happening. I have no
Mm.
idea.
That would seem accurate to me. How can we know about
And
what's happening? Yeah. Does that make you feel helpless?
my mind is like, maybe someone would know.
Find the right person and they'll magically tell you. Once you know what will happen, what is happening, it will go away, eh? Hmm. But you are the best expert to know what's happening here. Nobody else. But here's the thing. You don't have to know exactly what's happening. You know the result of it. That's easy. You can't get away from the result of it, but you don't have to know what's causing it. Just that something is. And I guess you already know that worrying about it makes it worse.
I want to ask, have I heard it right that you said you felt like there is blood in your throat? Or was it that it's bloated?
No,
Because maybe
I said it's pulsating.
you mean blood in arteries?
I don't know. It's just the whole throat is just pulsating, and it can. I can feel it. I can feel it moves, and if I looked in the mirror, I can see it moving, and it's so obvious.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about your throat at first, before the whole head was pulsating. Yes, it was about the throat pulsating with blood. Yes.
Yeah, and it's still pulsating. I went to a doctor a while ago. He said I have some inflammation, and it wasn't really related because uh, I told him, is it something it has to do with nerves or nervous system or whatever? And he said, you are delusional.
Yeah. It's good how they can know exactly what's going on and they don't. Go on.
Ramiz, I so relate to what you're saying. What you just described is actually what I think has probably been going on like 7 days now. And it's like there was different sensations that have always been there, just seemed to get like more and more intense. And when it got to the throat, like I'm not saying it's gone or sometimes it's still there, but everything you described is how I felt. It felt like it was just like really clenching and just keeping, it's like a lid being forced closed, but something wanted to bubble up. So I don't know if it's the same. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but I do relate to what you're saying. And when Vince talks about like you don't need to know what it is, that was a huge relief to me. It was a huge relief, and when all these sensations were getting more and more strong, to not have to go and find an intellectual reason, or just to know that it's conditioned from something that's happened in the past, and that would make perfect logical sense in the relative world why I'd feel like that. But and then the second bit was just there was a point at which there was still something that was worried that there was something wrong with how I was feeling. And I think I just worked with Vince's bot for, I think it must have been 3 days pretty intensely on this. And I just kept reporting back what had happened, and I'd go off and do my day and come back and sit. And then it became a friend. It became like I got really like close to it. I felt sometimes it would be hot, sometimes it would be calm, sometimes it wasn't there, sometimes it was really strong. And I just noticed that it was coming and going. And then, and this is all a story now, I'm just trying to remember back what happened. And then it was like, and you just said this is why I thought I'd open my mouth, is that it's like I it's like I'm being carried away in the river now. This is just, I have no oars. There's nothing this brain can do. It tries to sometimes, but there's absolutely nothing I can do. And like I just mentioned, like even if I'm in the car, the sensation will contract, and sometimes it's really, really uncomfortable, and sometimes it's really hot, and I just want to get out my skin. It's just horrible. But I just go back to being, it's like something enfolds its arms around it. Like there's a safety blanket that just comes over and said, this is all okay. This process, whatever's happening is okay. And this is going to sound really strange, and I'm not saying it, but I just went with what I felt like doing. and the throat got so hot. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to breathe, and I felt like I got a great big piece of ice or something, and it just pulled out of my throat, and then I pulled it up, and then I just threw it away, and yeah, so that was quite a kind of graphic thing that worked for me, but is obviously not for everybody. But I just wanted to say that I relate so much to what you're saying, and because it's quite fresh in for here, this experience that happened last week. So and now little jolts come, and the face might contract a little bit, but they're friends. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm not scared. I'm not frightened. Um, yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. I don't know if it's helpful, but it's yeah. The bot's brilliant for just going through the day with this too. Yeah.
Yeah, you're describing my experience exactly.
Wow. Thank you. I'm blown away by how we help each other. It's just great. Yeah. I always think with the throat stuff that when, especially with contraction and that feeling of blockage, it's that we really want to say something that we don't want to say. That we feel we don't have the right or the ability or the whatever, I don't know what it is that we want to, maybe we want to shout something out and we just can't allow it to come out because it's either bad or it's wrong or it's inappropriate or something. So this is my thoughts about the throat constriction, which of course could be completely wrong. I don't know.
That it feels true.
That's really interesting. Like, because after that happened, Vince, what I noticed was I was just saying stuff, but there was no back judgment. There was no like lingering. There was no like just that compassion for what you say, what you do, how you act is all a result of everything that's happened before. That was, and that's the little knots that keep unfolding since that release, I think. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
keep discovering bits. Yeah, that's great. It's amazing how it's really weird how stuff that comes out of our mouth produces a picture that other people might see of us. And that's what makes it unacceptable before. Who knows? Yeah. But my thoughts with you, Ram, is that you keep saying in your mind, leave me alone. That's what you want to say. But you
I do
just
that
don't know.
sometimes.
Yeah. And don't worry about it's directed or not directed or whatever. Just allow it to keep coming out until something happens. The tension, the pressure in there is from not letting it out. And I just had this really weird image of a balloon, and we've blown it up and let it go, and it's going all over the place as the air comes out of it, releasing the pressure, and it's deflating. I don't know where that came from. It was a stupid joke, I suppose.
Something about the throat feels like fragile.
Mm.
Like I have this intense energy pressure in the head, and it can get very painful, but I don't mind it as much.
Is that because it's familiar?
No, the throat is more familiar.
The pressure, though. When you say you don't mind it, it's unpleasant, but not too unpleasant, or it's unpleasant, but also pleasant.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost pleasurable, the pressure in the head, but the throat, it's never pleasurable. It's always painful.
And what is that thought?
What is what?
The thought that's never pleasurable.
Oh,
Did I hear you?
I think he meant throat.
Oh, throat. Right. Yes, I thought you said thought. Sorry, my deafness. That's my excuse anyway. Mm.
that's my accent. It's bad.
That's mostly okay. Yeah. But right, yes, yeah, the throat's never okay, yes. Which is interesting. I find that interesting. It's, yeah, okay, I wonder why. I wonder why the head can be okay, but the throat not.
I relate to that as well, Remy's, because it's like a breathe. If I remember rightly, I remember it's a survival thing because of the breathing, and I would get these freeze moments in my chest and in my throat, almost the point I was such shallow breathing, and I didn't think I was going to breathe, but I stayed with it, like I stayed with it, and the more I did that, the more I trusted that it would, like it was just frozen, and then there was a release. For me, I get this kick jolt from my stomach, but that's just how it does for me. But and then there's a little bit of release, but that's been over and over and over again. But for me, it was about survival. It's about this. It's so, like you said, it's very delicate. It's very fragile, and it's so the nerves in the brain, and there's something that we know that we protect this area. It's very key. Yeah. But it's like just having trust in the process. It's your body's doing what it needs to do. It's amazing, quite amazing, really. Yeah, don't know if that resonates or helps.
There are moments when like rare, like very rare moments when it feels, it's not pleasurable, but I remember I remember it from memories. It somehow it's related to some memories. Like it's very familiar. Like the sensation becomes like very delicate, and it's not sharp or as sharp as it usually is. And it's almost like a playful movement. And I get curious, like how this happening, like trying to understand or see, like maybe it's something related to how I'm perceiving it or how what I'm thinking, but I can't really understand why. But most of the time, it's very sharp, like knives are.
Mm. Yeah, I get it. I always remember Todd talking about, like, if we look at the sensations in our body and we feel them, like there's actually quite a limited, like the sensations themselves, the texture of them is quite limited, but what we put on them is unlimited. um, and when you talked about that playful, for me, I think that's where I used to get quite a lot of excitement. Like it used to kind of be like a lightness here. Um, and I wonder, sometimes I get curious, I wonder if I sometimes, when I didn't know about, the thoughts and until it was uncoupled, I think I might have got misdirected or confused with what was excitement and what was the body telling me something else. It's quite funny now. Yeah. It's that uncoupling of the sensation with the like now I understand a little bit more what Vince says. Like the thought that comes up is helpful because it might be part of the release, but it doesn't mean, I don't know, everything's just causeless. There's no, yeah, now I've got a bit stuck, so I'll be quiet. Yeah. It's funny, it goes, isn't it? Just getting a flow and then it just fizzles out.
I wonder now, because I also have this feeling of tight throat, and yeah, it's tied, like with a rope inside. But I have no idea what would it be that I want to say. I feel like I've said everything there was to be said. But maybe there are other causes.
Yeah, of course, of course. That's just only
Maybe
one way to look at it.
it's
Yeah.
just it's just because I was born with umbilical cord around my neck.
Mm. Yes, I'm going to have to go in a couple of minutes, but the only thing I can offer you, Ramez, is encouragement to stay with it, be relaxed and stay with it, even though I know they're stupid words. I feel you. But even what
Thank you.
have experienced today is very likely to change things a little bit at least. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, let's keep looking at it. Just staying with it, just sitting with it. And sitting with it here rather than sitting with it by yourself is different. It's good value. And curiosity, curiousness, being curious without expecting an answer is a good way to approach. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. To look at these things with curiosity. As much as there's part of us that really desperately wants that to be different, to change, we're helpless. We can only allow things to happen. And um, if you feel inclined to email me, and you want to write things down, do that too. That's very welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. I have to go. I've got somebody else in a little while. All right. See you later.
Okay. Bye.